Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 72nd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with Co-Host Shannon B. We're going to just start off with a serenity prayer, the we version. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Today's topic is step 11. Would you please read step 11 for us, Shannon, and share what this step means to you?
Of course I can. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So in step 3, I make the decision to turn my will and my life over to God. So my thoughts and my actions. Step 11 is how I stay in that conscious contact on a regular basis each day. So by prayer, right, I'm speaking to God, and in meditation, I'm listening for God to give me the answers back. It's a nice way to quiet your mind, right? Clear away like all of that chaos that goes on in that hamster wheel that we feel for a while. And when I'm praying and meditating, I'm only looking to seek out God's will for us and the power to carry that out. So I'm saying, God, what would you have me do, right? And give me the strength to be able to do that. Without falling back into defects or ego or trying to run my own will, right? And humility is like the principle of step 11. So in order to be teachable, to be humble, to be um, pocketing my pride and wanting to go out and live in my higher purpose, that's how I connect to my higher power. So I can do that throughout the day, start my day off like that, and I end my day like that too, for God to show me my spiritual path.
Wow, that's awesomely put. I've been going on Fridays. There's an AA big book study that's going over the new plain text, which to anybody out there who doesn't know, Alcoholics Anonymous sort of revised their big book in order to make it more accessible in a language that's just probably like, I would say, I wouldn't call it modern. I'd actually just call it simpler. I feel that the old book really had a lot of linguistics that people who don't have the same level of grammar as people used to have would find tremendously challenging to get the meaning out of. And so last night, though, it was on the chapter We the Agnostics, and so there was a whole lot of discussion about people's higher powers or gods and what that was and how they communicate with them. And so I thought that that was really funny for me to have that last night and then to come into today, sort of a little bit charged. Like, it was a great meeting. There was such a variety in people's own interpretations and such an acceptance from everybody about everybody else's, avenues of their higher power, and which is how it really should be according to what the book says, right? And overall, that the message is that this is a program of spirituality, not of religion, and that's a big part, but one of my favorite speaker tapes I ever heard was talking about conscious contact, which I think is a really important part of the sentence of what Shannon just read, trying to improve our conscious contact, because it's by a lot of the old timers, that I heard on these speaker tapes, they say that, the whole reason our program exists is because of our disconnection. Like, we're not contacted because of our thoughts, our actions, and just really, in some respects, a lack of methods and tools to learn how to be contacted, like in contact. But my very favorite one talks about how, you can neither have yesterday's contact today and you can't have tomorrow's contact now. So the only chance, there's no wiggle room on this. The only conscious contact you can have is in the present moment. So when you're trapped in shame and guilt, or, having anxiety about tomorrow, or even just sitting there with expectations of somebody, removing yourself to the future of what that person should be, you are not in conscious contact. And so, you know, a big thing is to use these tools to be able to live presently, because you're not going to even be able to access that conscious contact without getting yourself into the present moment. And so the prayer and meditation, it was something where I'm like, yeah, later. I'm like, later. Like I really put it off for a while. And what has occurred for me inside my program is that, I had a really great surrender, which should have offered me all the faith in the world to move forward with surrendering everything else. And I think I just went errant for a bit, and was trying to struggle with these defects on my own. And for me, it's been a real journey since about early November, maybe late October. I really started to try to get into the meditation and to pull prayer into my day. And the prayer really increased while I was in Mexico for me, just trying to implement that with my exercise. And so anyway, I was really excited because Shannon's had a lot more time in the program than me, and I really value her opinion on this. And I feel like at this point, I'm a real newcomer. So I think you guys today are going to get a real mix and a blend of different places in our existence. And I think that that's it for me for my preamble. Maybe that was a bit long, but I felt like it
No,
all needed to be said by me right now.
I think that's great. You really were thorough. You were explained it from your viewpoint, from what it was like coming in, right? Thinking that you could, because I was in surrender, the rest should just come, quite smoothly. And it doesn't work that way, right? And we all have things that are kind of a little bit more like a brick wall to go up against, right? And our recovery. Some people find that, really practicing forgiveness of others, forgiveness of self. For some, it may be meditation. A lot of people, it's prayer. And also, if you have any prejudice from a religious standpoint, having to make that definite, like, having to understand that there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual and what this program asks of us.
Exactly. And I do think, though, that the new plain text does a much better job at showing that division. I don't know if you read that. Have you read
Not
it yet?
yet.
Okay, well, you're going to be like, "Oh, nice job on that chapter." I thought anyway. Like I'm not knocking the old one, but I think that they just offer a couple more ways of thinking about it that would help people understand, because I think that they've seen 100 years of this challenge. So whoever
And
was
the wording that they used and the comparisons and the way that they reference things is written from that current climate and what was going on in the world at that time in 1934. It's different today, right? So it doesn't necessarily make sense to everybody, to most people too, right? So that's why sponsor is great to be able to explain those things. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the new text too.
in the 1930s. Honestly, I'd be interesting to a Google searches a stat on this, but I guarantee that a higher percentage of people in the 1930s either were religious or were forced to go to church as a child than are now. Like that. I guarantee that stat. Like there's just a lot more people right now whose only example of religion would be from TV or movies, and have never entered into a church a day in their life. And just because I think that a lot more people, like at least in Canada, say, maybe probably the States too, a lot more people were freshly from Europe, which in Europe, the church had a really strong hold over people. And then it was like, what I've seen is just kind of as more generations get away from that, there's just more generations that have chosen to not have any sort of religious affiliation, you know, and so people are instantly spooked by something they don't know anything about. You know, and honestly, I think some of them have an advantage over where I started coming from Catholicism because I was fighting against something that I thought was punishing and judging. And and that was a really hard comeback to her, you know, for me. So, do you want to start the questions or do you want me to today?
You want to start today, and I'll start, and then I'll go after you.
Okay. Um, it has been well said that almost the only scoffers at prayer are those who never tried it enough. Has this been your experience? How or how not? And how have you seen this with others?
Mm. Um, Scoffers at prayer. Hey, so what this
Scoffing, scoffing.
yes, what this program and what my speak out of this. I go to a Spirit Contemporary church or Christian Contemporary, right? So I've learned a different way of praying there, which is in praying in an abundant way, right? And this program taught me a different way to pray too, because prior to when I was praying to God, it was typically for something, right? To change an outcome of something or really I don't want to say it was always self-centered prayer, but a lot of it was built around self. And there was a fear attached to it. Whereas what this program taught me is when I'm praying, it's praying for my usefulness to others, right? It's praying for God to help heal my heart. It's thanking God for what He's already given me, right? And the way that I pray in abundance is, you know, thank you, God, for this beautiful day you're about to give me. Like I'm already putting that mindset out there, right? If I'm going into challenging situation in work. I really bring God into everything. But say if I'm going into a meeting, I'm like, thank you, God, for allowing me to show up in this meeting as, my most centered self. Thank you for how well things are going to go today, right? Like putting that positive thinking out there rather than praying in a, oh God, please just get me through this, or oh God, if you get me off the hook for this, then, I won't drink again, or I won't do this again, or I'm really going to start taking things seriously. But it's really a hollow, empty-ended, like open-ended prayer with really no commitment to it. So in this program, I pray a lot differently. And when I work with sponsees who are new to prayer or don't really understand it, I just say, come from a place of gratitude and humility to begin with. Thank God. Take that time to wake up every morning and immediately thank God for another day of being sober, right? Another day with this gift of recovery. And at the end of the day, thank Him for putting you to bed that night in a clear mind and clear conscience. And when we come from that standpoint, right, it slowly but surely gets easier too. And I'm always praying for, even in like the resentment prayer, it tells us to pray for the best for people. So we're not coming from a scarcity mindset or from a place of anger, right? It's just like a loving connection with God. And I just try to follow that to the best of my ability.
I love that.
You?
And for me, you know, I'd like to say that I'm really glad I got the sponsor I have right now because his commitment to his faith is inspiring to me and has been inspiring to me. It's funny. There's a guy at the Oliver meeting I go to now. He's an older guy. He's been straight a long time, but he started a meeting called the Godless Bastards in Penticton. And he's like, yeah. So he's always like on the side of like the not believing God, but like. What I want to say by this is that there is a serenity I see that goes with faith in people, and and the assurance of I don't know what it is, but there's like an assurance and a calmness about people that I know inside this program that have, a faith that they actually practice on and not just talk at a meeting, and my sponsor really has, shown me a lot of the ways to act and act in it, like I get real cringy when someone is like trying to pray self-will because of what my sponsor said in that, that's not what we're supposed to do. And so for me, I know that since I have been implementing it and also since I've been implementing it with my version of my higher power, like fakety faking it to something that isn't what I've taken in as my higher power wasn't working. It didn't work. And implementing it into my day in my way, it really is. And so, I don't scoff at it. I just feel like I need to do it more. I need to do it more consistently because there's so many times where I'll talk to my sponsor and he'll be like, "Oh, well, did you pray about that?" And I was like, "Oh shit." Like go to someone for a solution and their solution is, "Did you pray about that?" And you haven't, you're always not going to have done that, right? You know, he's like, "Did you pray about that?" And so, for myself, I just need to continue stepping up my game in whatever way I can.
And that's what a good sponsor will tell you, right? Is they're not going to give you advice based on their opinion. They're always going to say, "Have you prayed?
Yeah.
Connect with God over this. Wait for the answers," right? And it says
Hmm.
too, like, we don't struggle. So when we're asking God for the right answer to seek to do his will, we're not going to sit there and then say, "God, show me your will." But then I'm going to obsess in self-will until I figure it out myself and then do what I want to do.
Yeah,
That just defeats the purpose.
absolutely. Okay, do you got a question now,
I
Shannon?
do. I do. How has your understanding of a higher power changed since beginning um the steps in this program?
Well, like right off the bat, I was spooked before I went into treatment. A lady I had met at the conference that I OD'd at, she turned out to be,
Like, I'm not laughing at that concept.
yeah,
It's just the way that us as addicts slide those things into a conversation, like it's second nature, right?
well,
I
it
know, buddy. I've
absolutely,
been there.
it is
I've
the
been there.
story. And,
Yeah.
but it turns out that she was also in AA. Like we kind of bonded and she
Mhm.
probably saw that I was someone who needed help, and then once she saw me rolling out on a stretcher, she was probably convinced, right? Like, and, but, inside that, she recommended that I get this book, like, because I was talking to her about my resistance about God before I even got to treatment. And, there's like, I think it's called like The 12 Steps Without God or something like that. So I ordered this book off Amazon and I had read it. And, but, at that time, I didn't have enough understanding of the steps for it to actually even have an impact. And the first couple of weeks, I really even had a hard time reading. Like my brain was just really frazzled and looped for a bit. And I remember even like, I got to options day 13 and they're like, read this. And I was like, whoa, like that's a lot for my brain right now. And but now, it's changed. Okay, so the only concept of a higher power or God I had, was the Catholic version. Like, here's the Ten Commandments, you're going to hell. Here's original sin. There was nothing like nurturing, loving, supporting, saving. See, like, to surrender to that meant that I was probably going to burn forever in eternal flames. Because, things like confession and the act of contrition only work if you're really sorry. And for some of that stuff, I was not sorry. Like I was just like, well, I made mistakes and some of them are damn fun. And really, but I always had a belief that there was an interconnectedness of energy around the world, and it proved it, like around the universe, not even the world, much bigger than that. And it proved it to me with my connection with my mom and two other people in my life who, when like I think of them randomly, they'll be calling me within 15, 20 seconds. Like there's just a weird thing that is not explainable by anything you see in a science textbook around this world. Like, and so I know that there's more to it. And then with my songs, it's like I feel like a conduit, not the source of them. And so I've always, had this universal energy that has been part of my life, and giving something positive to me. So inside options, there was a morning, it was before you got there, where people were sharing about faith. And so, there was a guy who's quite religious, and he was sharing about his faith. And I saw that serenity, or that kind of calmness that came about when he talked about his faith, because it wasn't a big question or an angst or something. And then there was another person talking about theirs. And while they were talking, I came to that realization that I could have a higher power for my songs, but not to save my life. And that really, to me, was the turning point. And so it's kind of stuck with that same energy that I've always thought of. So that's kind of where it is now.
I love that. My friend, when you speak, just like grounds me so much. I'm so fully present. I just like listening to you.
Wow. Thank you. I love that.
Oh yeah, I got to answer my own question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Come on. Come on. Come on.
Uh, yes. So higher power right there,
Mm,
right? Means
mm,
up here. So you people that are friends with me always hear me say, like, I'm looking for a leveled up lifestyle, right? I want to work on a higher vibration, right? So when these young ones are all like, the vibes are off, or I like the vibe, or whatever. We've been using that for a long term, right? And just we use the full word vibration. So I want to operate as my highest self to the best of my ability with God. So that means living to seek and do God's will. So the more that I am connected to that, my higher power, the more that I am in full trust and full faith and full surrender, the more that I'm going to be able to do that. Like it's second nature. That's so easy said than done, though, right? Because when I'm here right now watching Calgary get dumped on snow again, when the other day I was actually thinking it was time to put away my winter clothes and bring up my summer stuff. And Ryan was like, don't take my winter jackets downstairs into storage yet. Like we're gonna get some more snow. And I was like, we're not. Like today, you'd think it was January. But when I look out at how beautiful this is a great example. If this was me before the program, I'd be like, oh, such a snowy, gross day. I'm canceling everything, great excuse to break out the whiskey. But right now, I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's kind of like a winter wonderland. I'll be sure to dress warm when I go to work today after our podcast. Like, it's just a shift, right? In perspective and thinking. And that's all God. So, how my connection with my higher power is today is I don't view God as punishing anymore, or I'm not angry or hurt, right? It doesn't mean I don't feel those feelings, but they're not directed at God anymore. Like having lost my dad when I was really young, I had a lot of pain and a lot of sadness and anger in a way towards God. Like, if there was a God, why did you take my dad when I was so young? Why did you make me grow up without him? Like, I loved him so much. Why
mm,
did you do that? Well, God didn't take him, cancer did. And it's not God's fault for the actions of humans. Human beings are flawed. Human beings are sinners by nature, right? We are going to make mistakes. So if I'm angry at God for the actions of a human in my life, that's not God. That's a person without God. And if I want to be forgiven, I have to practice forgiveness too. So my relationship with God looks a lot differently today. And I also bring my higher power into everything, every step of the way. It's like a best friend I'm communicating with before. Whereas when I would reach out to God in the past, it was in the midnight hour, right? Like,
Yeah.
please help me, please help me, please get me off this ride. Or, any times that you made pacts with God when you know, are really scared because of your addiction and where you're at in it. You know, the one promise that I did make to God was before I went back to treatment, and, I've been sober since, is God, please, I need help. I don't know what to do anymore. Please show me. Right? Like, that was humble. That wasn't, God, get me out of this so that I don't X, Y, and Z. It was, God, give me some humility right now and show me what to do next. Right. And that next intuitive thought came that led me to meeting you, to my sobriety today, and everything else. So yeah, it looks different because I view God as something that, like, He's always been there. It's just I choose to tap into that. I choose to plug in and connect to my higher power consistently and every single day, rather than be like, well, where were you in this one, God? God was always there. It's where was I in seeking to do his will and seeking to connect. But that was a little long-winded, but that's what I meant, is how things look different.
I love that. That was great. Um, you know, I definitely think that I was coming from a taker point of view in
100%.
whatever concepts I have. Like, you know, uh, and it's really that shift from self-centeredness to, your higher power centeredness of, like, what can I do versus what can I have? Like, I want, like, please let this person do this. You're still thinking you're the puppeteer. And it's just such um, such a missing the point thing. Like, I feel like, whoa, was I ever missing the point of existence even? Like, not even just of my prayers. Like, if that was my prayer, that means that I was misinterpreting my purpose entirely. And so yeah, it's been a really huge transitional journey. So first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our first step out into the sun. How then shall we meditate? How do you meditate? How often and for how long?
Mhm. The only thing that can grow well in the dark is fear, right? Because as soon as we
Woo-wee.
bring light and onto things, then it doesn't seem as daunting and overwhelming. Okay, how long it's meditate, right? We're talking about not pray, right?
Yeah, let's talk
Oh,
about meditation.
so I didn't do this consistently my
Hmm.
first time around here. And even when I was struggling the most before I went into full-blown self-will and back into thinking things would be different this time, those of you listening, that means thinking that I'm going to be able to control my drinking. Um, I understood why meditation was important. I heard it all the time in meetings and mentioned throughout as people practice this program at a higher level. But it really wasn't something that I was fully dedicated to doing. Couple of reasons. Quieting the mind is very challenging for a lot of people, very challenging for those of us who are alcoholic or addict, because we've got two voices inside, right? And you've got your disease that's patiently waiting, telling you one thing at all times. And that's how to live in self will, and that's how to go back to addiction. Then we have our sane, sound, rational mind, which I like to say is our conscious too, that's trying to protect us and keep us safe. And it's an uphill battle. Um, and I have a really dear friend who said to me before, every day you're getting up and you're going against what instinctively, like what your first train of thought is, right? Instinctively, my conscience and my God conscience wants me to do the right thing and wants to keep me safe. But it's quickly drowned out by my addict brain that says, what's in this for you? You're hard done by. What do you want? what are you entitled to? Who are they to think this of like expect this of you? Is this making sense? You're
Yeah,
nodding. So yeah, we're going against the current at all times. So meditation is so crucial because we're already functioning in chaos all the time. We need to get some peace and some quiet so that we can receive God's message. I started out slowly and then it worked out from there, right? There's a beautiful meditation on step 11 that's on YouTube, and it's directly from the book. And I love the woman's voice. I find it very soothing. And in that meditation, I can quiet my mind, but it also I can understand the wording of it because it's a design for living that day. That's about 20 minutes. I'd be lying if I said I do that every day, and I do that perfectly because I don't. But I do quiet my mind each day and I do connect to my higher power. Sometimes I can't do it for a long time. Maybe it's just a few minutes. That's enough. Sometimes it might
mm,
be a minute. That's enough too. But I'll tell you what, when I don't, the quality of my day looks a lot different. And if I get going in the morning and I'm out the door or I'm onto a task, and then I start to feel like a little irritable, discontented, you know how it goes. I will stop and be like, "Whoa, I missed a crucial part of starting out my morning." And I can reset it at any time. Like I can meditate at any time. For some, it may be listening to a speaker tape. Others, it may be listening to some sort of music. Others, it might be, real mindfulness where the brain is shut off and you're connected. You've got your feet on the ground, you're connected, right? You're in sync and you're walking yourself down, recognizing each part of your body from your head to your feet. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. Well, sorry, there is a wrong way. It's not doing it. But it's not a one size fits all, right? It's whatever works for us. And that's how I talk to my sponsees about it too. So I know what it's like when you don't, and I know what my day looks like when I do. And I'd rather stay in
absolutely.
the do.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Was just considering things while you were saying it. I try not to work out my answers beforehand because I feel that I don't want to sound rehearsed, and it also, I just kind of want it to come through me. Really, what's going on with this
I feel like
podcast?
I
And
pretty much live my life like that. I'm like,
yeah,
I want to be equally as surprised as what comes out of my mouth next as you are, right?
yeah. I don't know. I could be even more astonishingly, pleasantly surprised than you because you know what the caliber of your thoughts, and then sometimes I'm like, whoa, look at that, super duper. Um, for myself, my initial response would be music has been my first meditation my whole life. And, for anybody, it's like, but you're not really clearing your mind. Once you get to a certain point of playing, you really actually put your body on autopilot. And if it's something like, I'm constantly writing something new. And generally, that new piece involves one micro movement better than I used to be able to do it. So it's like it takes absolute concentration to do this repeated motion over and over and over. And inside the presence of that actuation is where I feel like the only moments in my life where I know that I'm 100% present. Like I'm doing like everything I'm doing is what I'm doing. There's no extra Milan floating about being like chores later, got work to do. Call Lucille, she needs to do this subject removal by this. Like it that's gone. That's gone for that little moment.
Yeah.
So and that goes back to that conscious contact only occurring in the present moment. Like there's magic in those moments for me. Another time is, guaranteed walking my dogs, being outside. Like I anybody who's on my Facebook will see that I am endlessly posting pictures of beautiful scenery because I'm endlessly surrounded by it. And so,
You
like, I
truly
get
are.
I get awed where I'm just like looking over, and there's moments of presence there that's like where I'm like, whoa, okay, it's still here. Afterwards, like, just awed by the beauty. And then inside yoga, when I do yoga, which I would say, it was of quite a few times a week before I went to Mexico, but it's only been a couple since I've been back. But inside doing the yoga because I'm really focusing on breath, and I'm also, um, putting my brain and body into emotion that that it just gives me presence during that. And then back at the end of October, I actually started to do guided meditations. And a lot of the Mondays that I go to Monday Night Beginners, I go to the Dharma Recovery beforehand because they have a meditation inside their meeting, and I like to do group meditation. I realize that it's an interesting way to connect with others inside yourself, like that. To come out of that and to kind of have some splash moments that people are talking about that you were right there with in your own little universe. Um, but the guided meditations are really one of the ways for me to get outside of myself and to shut shit off. I like to do them before these podcasts sometimes when people have time to do them before, because then it's like we both wipe our day away and we start here. And then lastly, I would say during exercise, when I was swimming, gosh, swimming was a wonderful place for me to kind of to go away into prayer and meditation and yeah. So I think that's the answer for me for that question.
Beautiful. What's your question?
No, that was my question. Now you got to ask one,
What is
because
my
it was like, how do you meditate? How often and how long? It's okay. It's like that's the beauty of it, is we get lost in the answers. Like Andrew and I sometimes are on here and we're like, where the hell are we? What are we talking about even? Like we didn't necessarily answer a question, but we sure shared recovery. You know, that's one of the funnest things about this.
I love it. Okay. So, with humility being the principle in step 11, how would you say that you instill humility in your life today?
Well, I think my very first step with humility is with honesty. And like that honest ability to be like seeing when A, it's not me, and B, seeing when it is me and why. Like, and so it boils right back down to what I was talking about, surrender earlier. Like having the humility to know that I'm not running the show. The show's not mine, and that I need help with my problems. That humility of actually being able to ask for that guidance or help is essential. And without that, I'm I'm really I'm really just thinking I can do it, which has been a mistake and a problem in a lot of my program that I fully, like I fully now realize and recognize, like it just keeps coming up right now, is that this is not a program of self improvement. This is a program of surrender. And, and it's surrendering for that message and surrendering, for the strength to carry it out and surrendering like that I am not the answer all the time. And I think I'm going to leave that one there.
I love that. So yeah, with staying like in my AA principle of being in faith, right? And step 11 is I'm practicing that, right? And my connection with God and trusting that the answer that's revealed to me in God's will is the right one, right? And I just have to keep that faith. I got to keep believing that I can't, God can, right? As long as I make that commitment and I stay in that surrender, then I don't have to run the risk of acting out in self-will. Well, it still happens sometimes, but how I can, instill humility in my life is like practicing empathy towards others, showing love, compassion, and tolerance, right? And not when it's easy to do, when it's hard to do, too. Cultivating like a culture of respect, right? I'm treating others with respect and consistently as I would want them to treat me. And that doesn't mean that I have to condone things that aren't right or that I don't have boundaries or that I'm giving people access to parts of me where they're going to cause me harm. It just means that I can show up with the same love, tolerance, compassion, and respect from one human being to the next without trying to drive my will home, drive my opinion, change somebody, right? Or be in judgment. And also to show up in practicing words of encouragement, right? We're all flawed. We're all going to struggle. So, as I'm encouraging to myself, as God is to me, I can show that to other people too. And also making listening more important than talking a lot. In meditation, we're there to listen, right? In prayer, we're lifting it up, we're communicating, we're talking with God. But when, my friends come to me or sponsees sharing with me, right? My goal, and if I'm right with God, isn't to give them my opinion and change their perspective, to give them a safe space to confide in me, right? I can listen and then respond with love and compassion. And that's the beauty of being in humility. Lack of ego.
I
It
love
means that I
that.
don't have it. It just means I'm not operating in it.
Ah, yeah, I like that. Doesn't mean that I don't have it, just not that you're operating in it. I love that. That's a great one.
Thank you.
Okay, so prayer is the raising of the heart and mind to God. In this sense, it includes meditation. Has this been your experience? How or how not?
Raising of the heart and mind, did you say to
Yeah,
God? Um, yes, absolutely, right? Because I'm clearing anything away that's blocking me from God. So the stronger my connection is to my higher power, which is in my heart and in my soul, the more beautiful serenity that I feel and the more peace, right? Opposite of calamity is serenity. So definitely I'm lifting that up to my higher power. And it's such a beautiful connection to form in there, right? And that silence too, that not in that chitter chatter going on in my head or letting my own thoughts drown out the message God's trying to send me is definitely like a mind, body, head, soul connection, like, right? Heart, mind, body connection to God and that beautiful, like, spiritual fitness, right? Because we're blocked off, right? And that spiritual malady is a spirit soul sickness. But in meditation and in practicing and living our life according to how God wants us to in the steps show us is there's no disconnect anymore. It's like at one, and that's a beautiful peace. So I feel like a lot of the peace and contentment I feel in my life today is because of prayer and meditation, also direct conscious contact with God and how my actions are, right? Not always going to be perfect, but I try to keep them devoid of self will. And I'm only really playing for myself if that's going to be for me to be of service to someone else, right? Giving me strength to hold space, giving me the ability to show up with compassion, love, tolerance, even when it's difficult.
I
What
love
about
that.
you?
Well, I think that I've definitely learned, especially from my sponsor, but also inside this program, that all of my like angst and my fears and everything is when I'm trying to act out of self will. Like all of them. Like it's not like kind of sometimes I'm scared because of self will, but other times I'm scared because of God's will. Like it just doesn't happen. Like that's
Yeah.
it's just absolutely. And inside that, I feel like two things. Like I feel like I'm either lacking the surrender or I'm lacking the acceptance of that moment. And the only time, you know, um, inside my recovery that I've had an absolute relief from a really, life threatening shortcoming was in my surrender. So, like taking that over, it's like seeing how I still need to further surrender a lot of my fears is like a large kind of mission inside my relationship right now. And my sponsor's like, if God's over here and I'm over here, he's like, I'm feeling fear and I'm feeling anger and I'm feeling angst. He's like, but if I go snuggle up with God, he's like, I'm not feeling that stuff. And so,
You're in
it's
your
literally,
faith, not
it,
your fear, right?
yeah, but it's like, increasing that conscious contact is what is going to bring you the serenity, not you scrambling about to still try and control stuff. And so, you know, um, it has entirely been my experience that, that it is raising myself up, like not raising myself up to like the level of my higher power, but raising myself up almost in supplication. Like raising myself up to say, here, take me because I'm not doing a great job here. And I think that that's a big goal of what's going on with me at this current point in my life is to improve my conscious contact. And
I
that's
love
my
that.
answer.
I love that.
Do you have
Um,
another question?
yeah, the step 11 prayer that's in the big book too, before I even get into my full question, is a great starting place too for those of us that are new to the program and starting to practice step 11, right? Like the whole guideline is right there in the book. It tells you upon awakening when we retire at night, and it has the step 11 prayer in it. So that even just being able to read that and give a little reflection is a great beginning, right? For prayer and meditation too. And that's what I love about this program is it's not complicated. We'll complicate it, but it tells you exactly what you need to be doing. Upon
Yeah.
awakening, we think about the next 24 hours ahead. So yeah, I'm going to reference a little bit of that. I love that guide, like that outline and guide for the day. Okay, I'm going to think about the next 24 hours ahead. You know, what do I have going on? And I'm asking God to help me be divorced from self-centered, self-seeking motives, right? And how do I want to go about this and practice this so that I'm kind of prepared, right, for everything that I'm going into. And even before I'll go into something, like I might even take a couple minutes to meditate in my car so that I can get right with that.
Mm.
Do you find, do you find yourself using like pages 86 and 87 in the big book a lot in the morning to set yourself up for success for the day?
No, but I want to. I want to. Or like it is, something that I feel like I got lost in the 12 by 12 once I finished reading the big book and I need to go back now and I'm getting reminded of it just by going to these things on Friday nights. You know, like
Mhm.
into this other big book study. It's just like, oh yeah, I need to be delving more back, into the original literature. So for myself, I know that it's something that I want to be implementing more.
The big book is kind of like the meat and potatoes of the program. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's really it. And the 12 and 12 is just a great other piece of literature. And, it does go into a lot more depth in some, especially for some steps like 6 and 7, which I love the 12 and 12 as an add-on. But, when I started and a lot throughout the um my journey in the program, like I read that a lot in the morning, but to make sure I wasn't gonna forget it, I would put it on the counter open to that page, like, on my way to the coffee maker, because I know I'm gonna get up, I'm going to go to the washroom, I'm going to,
Hmm.
pray, thank God for, another day sober and connect with my higher power right away. And that I was like, "Oh, here it is. I can't avoid that," right? I tell my sponsees to do that too, so 'cause there it is. You don't think about it. You might pray and meditate, right, in the morning, but then you get in the car, and it's like sometimes you've forgotten some of this because somebody cuts you off in traffic, or you go into a situation and you're like, "Oh, so and so's in this meeting again," or "Here's what we got going on with this," and then you're right back into that, right? It's like that pausing when agitated until you're put right into a situation where you're agitated and your default mechanism kicks in.
I couldn't get out of it yesterday. There was like a thing with work where it was like I'm like, I am totally living in myself here. And it would like get close to resolved. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling all good. And then it was like, boom, back right into conflict. And it did that for like 7 hours yesterday. And the entire time, acknowledging that I'm living in my own will, that it's the wrong fucking place to be. And I couldn't get out of it. It was so, like yesterday, I was so self tortured because of that. It was just like what I would call 4 steps back in my program inside myself. You know, be careful what you wish for, because if you are wishing for a greater surrender, you're going to get a million chances to surrender. You're not going to get this magical surrender without the angst to get there. You know, like I had to basically watch my surrender muscle get flexed and get drop the weight. I'm like, spot me, Lord. And I'm like dropping the weight on my chest, stuck underneath the weight.
I've been in those. It's tough sometimes, right?
Mm, absolutely. But you know, at least I feel like the first step's awareness. You know, the first step's awareness, and then the change is never going to happen if I don't know it's happening. So, you know, I definitely think that I wasn't even aware of that 6 months ago. I would have just been like, what a shit day.
Yeah, and
Like,
that would have been that, right?
yeah,
Or it starts out in the morning like something's gone wrong. You're like, well, there goes today, you
yeah.
know? That's a write-off. Another excuse to act in, poor behavior too, right?
I
Right.
I tried to dig out of it, and that was my problem. Like I literally didn't surrender. And it was
Right,
just like,
you were like, I'm gonna use my mind to try to fix my
you
mind.
watch me get this better. Hey God, why don't you give me a parade? I'm gonna make this better. And it was like, no, that didn't happen. Okie dokie. Are you ready for another question?
I am.
Okay. We simply ask that throughout the day, God place us in the best understanding of His will and that we can have for that day, or that we can have for that day, and that we be given the grace by which we may carry it out. How is this implemented in your prayer?
Mm. When I'm asking God to give me the grace to carry things out.
Mm,
Um, what I'm praying to is a lot of God, give me the strength to seek and do your will in all circumstances today. Because it's easier to do that when things are going as planned. But when you're challenged or your back's up against the wall, um, we really, really need to channel God's God's will in that. We need that strength. We need that ability to surrender, right? And I was listening to something recently on anger, and I like to tie it into, what God would want me to do in that situation. Like anger is a natural emotion. We're all going to experience it, but it's how we react and whether or not we're acting out in that really is the difference between living a spiritually led life and living one led in self-will. So if I feel angered about something, I can give myself the ability to sorry, that's not the right word. I'm going to acknowledge how I feel, right? But where I really need God's help is to not react immediately. Take a step back, acknowledge that I'm angry, and what is the fear driving that? Because beneath all of that is usually fear, right? What am I worried I'm not going to get? What am I worried I'm going to lose, right? Where's the fear in that? And then once I can identify that and give myself permission to be human and say, okay, you know what? I understand I'm in fear about this. And I meditate on that for a second and, connect with God. Then it gives me that peace and that calmness to go and communicate my feelings without coming in an attacking mode. The ability to show vulnerability, right? And there's a lot of strength and power in that too. But if I don't have God in that, then I'm reacting right away in anger. And like the book says, did I not, in fact, get the ball rolling, right? I can't control others, but I can control how I show up in that situation. So I need prayer, meditation, and God's strength. So I'm asking God, show me grace today. When I fall short, give me the humility to own my mistakes and to apologize quickly, right? And to move in a different direction so that I'm not beating myself up. Give me strength to show up and be tolerant of things that typically I wouldn't be. Let me see others as flawed human beings just as I am. And I'll remove my judgment as you see fit.
Yeah.
As God sees fit, not in my timeline, right?
Hmm.
And as God sees fit, my end of things is practicing the opposite of what I would do. So if I'm saying, God, show me patience, help me find patience, as you would want me to. He doesn't just give me the patience immediately in a tough situation. What he does is what happens is I'm suddenly thrust into more and more situations that require me
That's what I
to
was
be
saying.
patient, right? Whereas my default is to be impatient and go, oh, well, guess God hasn't given me patience yet.
Yeah.
No,
He's
God is
giving
saying,
you all
let me
the
study it,
chances to learn it.
right? Like if I say, God, please help me and point me in the right direction of where I need to be in my career, for example, right? It's not like I'm sitting at home watching TV and then employers knocking on the door or, ringing me up and going, hey, heard you're looking for a job. You're the most qualified. Let's go. When would you like to start? I have to do the act of doing my resume, applying, being fit, right? Being patient, all of that stuff. Like that's just an example, but we're put in situations that are going to test us. And if my if I don't have any connection with God, I'm going right back to operating in self, and that's not helping anyone.
I love that. But that was just an epic answer. I mean, I feel like my answer for this one is really just much shorter, but it is that, I literally ask for both of those things in my prayer. For I ask for, an understanding of his will and the strength to carry that out. I simply ask for those two basic things because when when it's going really crazy, it's like because I'm crazy. And it's not because anything else is crazy. And that's one thing that I've recognized in this program. It's just that my perception is the problem. My reaction is the problem. The universe is just fine and dandy. Like you take Milan out of it, and the universe is like, tick, 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 we're still going great, man. We're still going great. You put Milan in it, and I'm like, well, that's not right, and that's not right. We need to change this. Hey, why don't you get over there, stand like this, do this, I'm up like that, and that's and that's my problem. It's not the universe's problem. And a fine example of this was I moved out west in 1995, and I thought, meet the center of the universe, Milan, thought that you know life was going to stop back in Ontario for other people, and lo and behold, everything was still going on without me. Did not matter if I was there or not. And that was like my first example of the universe is just fine with or without me. And I think that that's a great way to look at how we have to have acceptance is that things are going to tick along with or without us. So like either we're cool with it like and surrender or we're bound up with defects and shortcomings all day long. But that's our choice. Like
Mhm.
we have our choice is the surrender and the acceptance. And our higher power is basically running the whole rest of the show. Like we're just like we either go love the show or don't love the show. But that's our moment. Like that's our one thing is acceptance or surrender. Like because I feel like the two are really intertwined at that point. Like your surrender of your acceptance is really like it, it's quite interchangeable right at that moment. And that's it for me on that one. Do you have another question, Shannon?
I actually have one more.
Okay.
About 11. So tells us in the big book when we retire at night, right? Is that something that you practice? Do you do? And a review of your day. And I know we do like inventory and 10, or like, 10 is on the spot inventory, right? But at the end of the day, when we're reviewing things, do you take the opportunity to say, like, what could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others or what we could pack into the stream of life? Have we kept something to ourselves, which we have discussed with another person at once? We're kind and loving towards all. We were resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid. By the time we retire at night, 86, 87.
So I find that I'm much more successful at executing that when I go to a meeting at night because I'll do it
No.
kind of on my way home from the meeting. I am like the classic fall asleep before I'm like, we'll be like, hey, let's go watch a movie together. And 5 minutes later, I'm snoring. Like I have this great concept that I've got a few more hours in me. So most of the days, I don't even know when my night is going to start occurring. So if I
Does
go
your
to,
wife, just a side note, is your wife the same way or the opposite?
no, like she's usually up watching things after I fall asleep, you
But
know?
does she ever think, wow, it's like Milan can just fall asleep like that?
Like that's not been the case my whole, like, I mean, not until my sobriety. I
Yeah.
used to be like, sleep was for pussies. I would lie there fidgeting all night pretending to sleep. I was like, sleep's for when we die. Like, I was not worried about sleep. I'd be
I
like,
get it. It's interesting, hey?
yep.
Um, yeah, I find like some people could just fall asleep right away. My sleep has been so much better this time around too. It's just a lot more inner peace and exhaustion too, in a good way.
Mm. So, like, when I go to a meeting, though, I always have the drive home, and I try to use that as a reflective point of my day. And I like that, and I've been going to more in-person meetings here in Oliver, like three now, generally. I went to a guy's 35th birthday the other night, and I loved it. And it was great, though. I got to tell you this, like his message was whatever you're doing, if if you're sober and you have a reasonable amount of contentment, he's like, don't let anybody else tell you what to do. And I thought that was great. He's like, this isn't a cookie cutter thing. Nobody's recovery is going to work for somebody else exactly. And he's like, most people won't get a reasonable amount of contentment in their life. He's like, so if you got a reasonable amount of contentment and you're straight, he's like, just stick with your stuff and don't listen to anybody else. And I thought, that's great. Like he wasn't trying to come off like he's any happier than anybody else or that he had any secret sauce. He's just like, I just keep doing the same shit because it works for me. And like, whatever you want to believe,
It's
whatever you
that
want to,
consistency,
yeah.
right? That he's doing, and he's found it's the simple, he's keeping it simple, not overcomplicating it, because we start overcomplicating it, then we don't even do the simple things, and before you know it, we've fallen off. And I'm saying we as in me.
Mm. And he's turning 80. And at 70, he started like a men's group in Oliver. He had moved here from Prince George and was like, I think the guys just need somewhere to talk guy stuff or whatever. And he started a men's meeting, and I just thought, starting meetings at 70, like not even like not being complacent, just like, hey, I need this in my recovery. Anybody want to come join me? You
That's
know,
beautiful. I love that.
I thought it really was beautiful, and I was super stoked to get to be lucky enough to be part of it.
I love that.
Hmm. I feel like we did a pretty good job here. What do you think?
I think we did a great job too.
And I'm tooting your horn more than mine. I think you did a great job, and I think I was happy to be
I
here
think you
along
did
with
too. We're a team, and
you.
we feed off each other well. I love it.
I can't wait till next week. We are so gonna have fun talking about spiritual awakenings and service and all the nitty gritty that comes with return. Like this is like the turning point of making it a circle in the program.
Full circle moments, right?
It is the first, and it will also be the last one on our step series, which it's been an amazing journey that we've
So
gotten
has.
all the way through, and but I'm so happy that we've gotten to have this time together to talk and to share our recovery with the people out there. I want to give gratitude for anybody tuning in, and we love you, and we just want you to maybe have a chance at staying alive. And that's really all the goal is here today.
Not just staying alive, but learning to thrive in our
Well, that's it. That's it. We got
recovery.
the freedom rising. Exactly. Boom, 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 boom.
I
Oh,
love it. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
tu-
Milan.
tune in next time for more recovery fun. Bye bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
We love you.
Please help us help others. If you've liked what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.